I'm here today with this little moleskin sketchbook journal. It does have blank pages, kind of cream colored pages, but I have been using this. I did this summer, I did a 4-day in-person workshop where we went over the art of the 60s and were inspired by those. And in the course of planning, I used this little journal to take notes and put ideas and research thing on the artists that we went over, did some research on them. So it just kind of turns into this little bit of a scrapbook journal type thing, and I still have some blank pages here and there, and I just thought I would like to kind of finish this up. I may revisit this workshop someday, and then it'll just be a bit more complete. I have a whole stack of papers kind of left over from the workshop, things, handouts, and things like that that we used that I thought I might include in there. So I just thought I'd invite you along while I do my little journal completion on this little 60s art-inspired journal. As usual, I've saved the information about the particular book that I'm using. I find that really handy when I want to go back and look at later, like maybe I want to order another book that's the same kind or whatever. It's just nice to have that information in there. So that's on the left side what I am going to stick in. On the right side, I just had this astronaut left over from our workshop, and that was a big part of my experience from the 60s was the space race, and so I just stuck that in there. Then I'm going on to make a music page, and I had written some notes elsewhere about some of the music of the day that I hopefully will get put on that page. This page is where I had my original kind of brain dump of planning to do the workshop, and this is just kind of what the page looked like. This is actually a copy out of another sketchbook that I put in here just so everything would be all in one place. And then here I have a page dedicated to like the colors of the 60s, which ends up not being enough room at all, and I have to continue some of that elsewhere. So this book isn't terribly organized because it just more evolved as I went and as I studied and learned some things and had ideas and things like that. So it is kind of a evolving work in progress. But I do enjoy these postcards. I'd gotten a whole batch of them, and some of them really were examples of what I was talking about in my notes or ideas for what I might want to do in the workshop. of have two goals here as I work, and one is to just have a home for some of this ephemera and something that will inspire me. Like I said, if I go back and do this workshop again and go back and use this book as a reference, that it'll be a more complete reference. It'll have some of my information and research all gathered in one place, and the ephemera in it. The other goal is just to have it be a kind of a fun book, and so have some of the awkward little gaps filled in. I don't mind so much if there's some blank pages left over, because I may add things later. I may choose some other artists to look at as well. And so I don't mind having some room for that, but I am just kind of trying to fill up the little gaps on pages and partial stuff so it feels like a more complete reference book. I'm pulling out these vintage television little art pieces are actually from a Patreon sheet that my August patrons will get, and so I just have those ready and waiting for that. So I'm going ahead and using some of those in here. The television, had kind of a big role in some of the things happening, either in the news reports in the media or the influence on people like artists like Andy Warhol and so on. And so I include those several times. They made nice little space fillers that were appropriate for the time. This is a little postcard book that I got at the Chicago Art Institute recently, and it had, there was several Warhol pieces, as well as some of the other 60s artists that I actually got to see in person, so I'm using some of those postcards to stick in there as well. Makes it extra meaningful to me. And so this is not only a reference book, but kind of like a personal record of my experience of studying and seeing this art and learning about the art and the artists, and just the whole good time that I had. One thing that I don't include in this work session that I plan to add later is a picture of the workshop participants. Just flipping through my notes here, looking for some blank spots that maybe I want to fill in, and what would be appropriate to put in those spots. Putting this self-portrait of Andy Warhol on this page. This particular art is some that is more contemporary but looks inspired by Rauschenberg or is done in a similar style, so I included that in there just kind of as the lasting legacy of some of the 60s art. And pretty much just flipping through, looking for spots that I have something I can fill with. One of the pieces we made during the workshop was making these little rubber stamps from a 2x3 little block, and there were several different items I did. The idea was to be along the line of Warhol's soup cans, some kind of everyday or commonplace items, or something having to do with the time. So it could have been like a cassette tape, or I did like that little astronaut. I also did these little jars of matte gel medium that I then turned into a art similar to the soup can art, or along that idea. I'm using these Tombow markers quite a bit in here that have more than a decorative purpose. They will make it easier for me to find, since this notebook is a little bit disjointed of notes here, there, and everywhere. It'll make it a little bit easier for me to spot things as I flip through of where they're at, so that's an advantage. There's some blank pages in there. You can see that I will leave blank because I will put something else in there. This little snippet I decided needed to go. I'm trying to consolidate a little bit here, some information. The artist Elaine Sturdivant, I had her information in a couple different places, so I'm just kind of combining that so that it's all together. And just going through my ephemera and trying to find homes for everything rather than just throwing it away. was another of the artists that we looked at, and so I have this little bit that I had typed up about her, as well as some pieces that were examples of being inspired from her work. And then I'm just going back with those markers again, adding some embellishments to fill in some spots with that, getting some more of my photos added in. So I just keep working. Not working in any particular order. I just keep flipping back and forth, figuring out what to put where, finding little spots that need some filling in, and doing that as I go, and just moving back and forth through the journal. Now I'm starting back at the beginning and just taking a little time to look through each page, see what still needs something, adding some last little finishing touches. I'm kind of winding up here with the time I had to work on this. I still have a little bit of ephemera in a pile there to the left, so I'll evaluate what of it needs to be kept and what needs to be thrown away. I do enjoy having that little pocket at the back, so I can stick some little things that I want to keep but don't really have a place to stick in the book. I can stick those back in there. Overall, this is looking much better, though, much more filled in. I'm happy to still have some blank pages, as I said, that I have room to add to. As I see some awkward empty spots, I'm still going back and adding little bits in here and there as I come across them. But I'm pretty happy with how it's coming along. As I've already said, this is more of a working journal than a aesthetic one. Its purpose was not to be a pretty book. Its purpose, it served well, was just a place for me to make notes where everything was kind of all together. But I do think it's much funner having these little bits and pieces in there. Not only is it inspiring as far as, you know, kind of giving me the 60s vibe, it also just is more fun to look back on, and makes it a more valuable, I think, little book, rather than just having bits of information. It is also fun to look through. This little journal for now. I'm going to be putting it on the shelf and setting it aside for a while. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.